super excited to be here today with you and be able to give you a presentation on vitamin K2-7 and multitasking vitamin. But before I do too much talking, we would actually like to show you a brief cartoon.
건강을 원하세요? 아침 산책이 보약입니다. 일석이조지요. 왜냐하면 운동도 되고 피부에 햇빛도 충분히 받을 수 있고요. 그럼 비타민 D가 많이 생겨서 몸에 칼슘도 잘 흡수되니까요. 칼슘이 뼈에 좋잖아요. 너무 좋죠? 글쎄요. 몸에 칼슘이 흡수되면 어디로 가나요? 피 속으로 가지요. 모든 칼슘이 뼈로만 가면 좋을 텐데 일부는 동맥벽에 가서 침착될 수 있습니다. 거기서 석회화가 되면 플라그가 쌓이죠. 바로 신장질환의 첫 단계가 됩니다. 그러니 칼슘은 몸에 좋을 수도 있고 나쁠 수도 있습니다. 바로 칼슘의 모순이죠. 만약에 피 속에 무언가가 저들 칼슘 분자들에게 가는 방향을 지시해줄 수 있다면
이쪽으로 가세요. 뼈 속으로요. 저쪽은 안 돼요. 동맥벽은 안 돼요.
걱정하지 마세요. 당신의 피 속에는 그런 교통경찰이 있답니다. 바로 메나키논, 비타민 K2랍니다. 칼에 베었을 때 혈액을 응고시켜서 피를 멈춰주는 역할을 하는 비타민 K1과는 달리 K2는 카복실화라는 과정에 필요합니다. 카복실화는 이른바 글루 단백질을 활성화시킵니다. 그중 하나가 칼슘 이온을 뼈 구조물에 넣어주는 오스테오칼슘이고 또 하나는 동맥혈관 석회화를 막아주는 매트릭스 글루 단백질이에요. 한마디로 K2는 뼈와 동맥의 두 가지 건강에 모두 필요합니다. K2는 산소가 몸에 필요한 에너지로 변환되도록 도와주는 산화환원 과정에도 필요합니다. 다시 말해 K2는 ATP 생산에 기여하여 에너지 생성을 극대화하는 데 도움이 됩니다. 이렇게 비타민 K2는 정말로 많은 질환 예방에 도움을 주고 있답니다. 예를 들어 골다공증, 심장질환, 인슐린 저항성 문제, 그리고 신경질환들 말이죠. 또한 에너지 레벨도 높여주고 근육 경련도 줄여줍니다. 그래서 몸속에 K2가 모자란다면 큰 문제가 될 수 있을 것입니다.
Alright, so that was a brief introduction to vitamin K2 and some part of that I will also be talking about. But first I would like to touch upon the history of vitamin K because it's actually a quite new discovery. So vitamin K was discovered back in 1929 by this Danish guy, and I'm also Danish, so this Henrik Dam is his name. And he discovered vitamin K and its role in the coagulation cascade. And thus he named this new vitamin, vitamin K, because K in Danish stands for coagulation. And then later on, a German researcher, Edward Doisy, he discovered the role and the chemistry of vitamin K, and together these two gentlemen shared the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1943. And as you know, macronutrients consist of proteins, fat, and carbohydrates, whereas the micronutrients consist of vitamins and minerals. And if we look into the vitamins, they consist of either water-soluble vitamins or fat-soluble vitamins. The water-soluble vitamins can be excreted easily from the body if they are excess, whereas the fat-soluble vitamins can build up in the body over time. And that's why you need to have exactly the right level of the fat-soluble vitamins. Not too little, but neither too much. But ever since the discovery of vitamin K2 back in 1929, in the first centuries it was believed to only play a part in the coagulation cascade. But then recently, from the 1970s and onwards, a lot of new functions for this vitamin K was discovered, and that's why today it's called the multitasking vitamin. So just to touch upon the vitamin K family, because vitamin K is not just one vitamin, it's actually consisting of a group of vitamins. So we have the vitamin K1s, the phyloquinones, and we have vitamin K2, the menaquinones. And if you look at vitamin K1, the reason they are all based on the same menadone core, and then they have different side chains, isoprene side chains, and they have one or more double bond in the side chains. So vitamin K1 has one double bond, and that's why it's vitamin K1. The vitamin K2 has two or more double bonds in the side chains, as you can see here. MK4, vitamin K2-4, has 4 double bonds, whereas, for example, MK7 or vitamin K2-7 has 7 double bonds in the side chain. And why is this important? It's important because the bioavailability of the vitamin and the plasma half-life depends on the side chain. And what we know nowadays is that vitamin K2-7 has the highest bioavailability and the longest half-life. And that is really what we're looking for when we're choosing a vitamin K2. As you know, vitamins are not synthesized in the body, or not produced by the body, with the exception of vitamin D, which you can get if the sun shines. But the rest of the vitamins, you need to obtain them from an external source. And that could be through your diet or via supplements. Vitamin K1 comes from plants and algae, and there's actually only a bioavailability of around 10 to 20% of vitamin K1, because the rest is bound very closely to the chloroplasts in the plant, the green pigments in the plants. However, if you have a normal healthy diet, you'll get sufficient vitamin K1. So deficiencies in vitamin K are very rare when it comes to K1. For vitamin K2, it's another story. It's synthesized by bacteria. It's readily taken up by the body, so almost like 100% bioavailability. However, in a normal or healthy diet, depending on which area in the world you're living in, but almost all of the world, you will not get sufficient vitamin K2, except for the Eastern Japan, where you know they eat a lot of natto, and natto contains a lot of vitamin K2. But other fermented foods, like for example kimchi, I know in Korea kimchi is very popular, but it's not as rich in vitamin K2 as, for example, natto is. So there again, you would need it from external sources, and vitamin K2 comes from dairy products like fresh cheese, meat as well, but otherwise you need to get it from supplements. So just a bit about vitamin K2 insufficiency, which is really widespread globally. Up to 98% of the world population are insufficient or having insufficient vitamin K2 on a daily basis. And the reason for that is that it's very, for now, there's not, people are not differing between vitamin K1 and K2. So if you look at authorities, they always recommend only on vitamin K level. And there is an AI for vitamin K, but there's not established an RDA for vitamin K2. Also because it's challenging to measure the blood levels of vitamin K2. So you cannot just go down to the doctor and take a blood sample and he'll tell you how much K2 if you are sufficient or insufficient with vitamin K2. So it's much more challenging, and that's the reason why this has not been established an RDA yet. And thus, we're not talking about deficiency of this vitamin, but rather vitamin K2 insufficiency. So the obvious question is, if we don't get enough vitamin K2 on a global level, how come that we're relatively healthy despite not getting enough vitamin K2? And the answer lies a bit within the principle of triage, which it's an expression, a term that we use in medicines, where patients can be categorized into 3 categories. Either they need immediate attention, urgent attention, or not urgent attention. So if you go into your doctor, you have a heart attack, he'll definitely say, okay, this guy needs immediate attention, right? But if you go into your doctor and say, oh look, I have a wound here, it's heavily infected, you would probably be categorized as needing urgent attention. But if you walk into the doctor coughing and sneezing, maybe showing some respiratory tract infections, you would be categorized as not needing urgent attention. And it's more or less the same the body does with the vitamin K2. The body wants to ensure short-term survival, and that is a higher priority than sustaining life on a longer term. And what does that mean? That means that for the nutritional insufficiency of vitamin K2-7, the survival here, there's certain high priority vitamins, vitamin K dependent BKD proteins, and these are the 5 proteins that we know that are found in the liver. They're intrahepatic and they are required for the coagulation cascade. So if you don't have these proteins active, you will get an insufficient function, and that can have severe impact to your health. So it's actually a matter of survival or not survival, right? So these are the high priority proteins, and the body can actually borrow vitamin K from other deposits around in the body in order to secure sufficient function of these 5 proteins. And they have a higher priority than those down here, which are there to sustaining life. These are the lower VKD, vitamin K dependent proteins. And for now we know about 18 extrahepatic proteins, meaning that they are outside the liver, they are in the circulation system. And for example, we can mention osteocalcin or the matrix GLA protein, which was also shown on the previous cartoon that we just showed you. But we know 18 of these proteins, and they are there to sustain a healthy life, but they have a lower priority. So insufficient function of these 18 proteins may lead on the long term to suboptimal health condition. Could be chronic diseases, osteoporosis, for example. I'll get into that later. So the function of vitamin K2 or vitamin K, as you also saw in the cartoon a while ago, put very simply, vitamin K is a cofactor for an enzymatic protein activation. So this is the inactive protein, the VKD protein, and it has a glutamic acid attached to it, and then with this enzyme, the glutamine gamma carboxylase plus the vitamin K, which functions as a cofactor, you can actually, there will be a carboxylation reaction, and you'll turn the inactive protein into the active protein, and that's what we want to do. So that was very short, but let me give you an example of what this could look like in real life. And this is actually a picture of vitamin K2-7 and how it helps to maintain the calcium homeostasis by ensuring distribution between blood vessels and bones, just as you saw in the cartoon. So if we look at this diagram here, starting down here, you can see MGP, that's the matrix GLA protein. And we have one UC, that's the uncarboxylated, the inactive protein, and then we have a carboxylated MGP. And that is due to the enzyme plus the vitamin K2 that turns this into an active protein. The active MGP protein inhibits another protein called the BMP2 protein, which again inhibits vascular calcification. So calcium will not be deposited in the blood balls, but rather it will be freely floating around so that it can be used elsewhere in the body. And this is where the second reaction here comes into play. Again, we have the uncarboxylated osteocalcin and the active osteocalcin over here due to vitamin K2-7. And what this osteocalcin does is that it has a high affinity for the calcium ions, so it catches them or adheres to them, and facilitates the transportation of the calcium ions into the bone, where it can be used for bone formation by these cells called osteoblasts. Bone formation is the building up of bones, and it's a process that is constantly ongoing in the body. So we're constantly building on our bones. On the other hand, we're also constantly having this process running, bone resorption, and that is breaking down of the bones. So we will constantly have a breakdown of the bones and a build-up of the bones, and you need to have the right level between those. You definitely don't want more bone resorption than bone formation. This is what happens when you get osteoporosis, for example. Your bones are getting weakened over time due to the bone resorption. And the bone resorption, this is the active osteoclasts that are responsible for that process. And here again, vitamin K2-7 or vitamin K2 plays an important role, because this protein here is activated by a receptor molecule called RANGL. You can read the full name up there. But the important thing is here that vitamin K2 augments this osteoprotein receptor here, so that it actually gets an affinity to the RANGL receptor molecules and attaches to those. And that means that fewer RANGL will be available to activate the osteoclasts, meaning that you will get reduced osteoclast, reduced active osteoclast, and thus reducing the bone resorption. So overall, what you see on this picture is that you will get less calcification in the blood vessels, more bone formation, and less bone resorption. And that will result in less vascular calcification and stronger bones on the long term. So vitamin K2 plays a role in many health benefits, as I've said. It's a multitasking vitamin. And we have some very well-established health benefits, which you can see to the left here. Bone health, for example, as I just told you about, cardiovascular health as well, but also diabetes management or glucose management, where there's a lower risk of getting type 2 diabetes if you have a diet high in vitamin K2. We also see some emerging health benefits of vitamin K2-7. This is where Jungersen is really is playing a role in generating the data behind these emerging areas. We're looking at muscle health, for example, reducing cramps, aerobic fitness, increasing the VO2 max, and also we see some emerging evidence on the control of peripheral neuropathy. And overall, the evidence that is linked to vitamin K2 can be divided into epidemiological studies and intervention studies. So now we have these large cohort studies on bone health, cardiovascular health, and metabolic health, where we really see some health benefits of vitamin K2. And then I'm going to show you one of these studies, but I'm also going to show you one intervention studies on bone health and cardiovascular health. But we also have intervention studies of nerve health, sport performance, and muscle health. So the first one I wanted to show you is the Rotterdam study. It's really well known. It's a huge prospective population-based study with almost 8,000 men and women of 55 years or older of age. And the duration so far, they have been included for 8 and up to 11 years in this study. And it's some of the strongest evidence for the cardiovascular disease prevention with vitamin K2. So it has shown that diets high in vitamin K2 reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease and mortality. And also it has shown that arterial calcification and cardiovascular related death were both reduced by 50%. So it's actually really strong evidence. And all in all, the deaths of the mortality was reduced by 25%. So this was an epidemiological study. I also wanted to show you an intervention study. This is a study that's showing that vitamin K2 for bone and vascular health. And it's a 3-year long randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. So it's a golden standard trial. The design, what we did in this study was that we included 244 postmenopausal women. They tend to have a high risk of, for example, osteoporosis. We gave the intervention of 180 micrograms of vitamin K2-7 a day, and in this case it was the natural Menakin Gold vitamin that they got, or they received the placebo, and the duration was for 3 years. So it's really a nice long-term study. 2 objectives in this study. One was related to bone health, based on bone mineral density and content, and the other objective of this study was to look at the cardiovascular health based on arterial stiffness. So let's jump right into it. These are the diagrams that are related to bone health. And if you look overall, what the study showed, saying up here, the bone mineral content and density were preserved in vitamin K2-7 group versus the placebo group. So you'll see here that there is a statistically significant difference between the groups. First figure here, BMC LS means bone mineral content for the lumbar spine, so the lower part of the back here. And what you can see here is that in the vitamin K2-7 group, the red line here, they more or less maintain the bone mineral content, whereas in the placebo group, they have a steep decline, so they got less bone mineral content over time. And the same picture arises here if we look at the bone mineral density, the red one being the vitamin K2-7. It's more or less the same. They have maintained the bone mineral density, whereas in the placebo group, you see a weakening of the bones over the 3-year period of time here. Based on these 2 figures, you can actually calculate the bone strength, either as impact strength or compression strength. Don't want to dig too much into this. You'll see overall the same picture here. Those who gets the vitamin K2-7, they maintain more or less their bone strength, whereas those in the placebo group have reduced bone strength over the 3-year period of time. So very strong data on vitamin K2-7 within bone health. And it gets as good when we're looking at the cardiovascular health. And it's the same study, but the second objective here, looking at or measuring the impact of vitamin K2-7 on cardiovascular health. So we used 2 methods. One is the carotid arteria stiffness, so measuring here at the arteria, how it expands before a heartbeat and during a heartbeat. So with ultrasound, you can actually measure, and you'll see the more flexible the vessel are, the bigger the diameter will get when you have a heartbeat. So that's one method. The second one is what we call the pulse wave velocity. So it measures the pulse wave traveling again from the arteria here in the neck and down to either in your arm or into your femoral arteria down here at the top of your leg. The faster the pulse wave travels, the more flexible your veins are. Or the other way around, the stiffer your blood vessels are, the slower the pulse wave will travel. And then looking at the result here, overall what we saw was that vitamin K2-7 improved arterial stiffness relative to placebo over 3 years period of time. And you can see here again, signified with the star, that this is statistically significant results. So looking here to the left, this is the distensibility, meaning how flexible it was expanding during, just before and during a heartbeat. And what you can see here is, in this case actually, the placebo is the red one, and over the 3 years period of time, it has the same diameter during the heart stroke. Whereas in the group that received Menakin Gold or vitamin K2-7, they actually got more and more flexible, so the diameter became bigger and bigger. And what we make out of this is that they probably got some calcification removed from their blood vessel. So during a 3 years period of time, they got more and more flexible veins, which is very beneficial. It's more or less the same picture you see over here, pulse wave velocity. What we're looking at here is the time it takes for the pulse wave to travel. So a reduction in time is good. That means a faster travel. So in the placebo group, the red one here, you can see that it took a little bit longer over the 3 years of time. Statistically significant again, compared to the vitamin K2-7 group, they actually, over 3 years, reduced the time it took for the pulse wave to travel from the neck down to your arm or to your femoral artery. So again, what we're making out of this is that the subjects included in this study got more flexible veins or less calcification in their blood vessels. So by now, I hope that I have convinced you that vitamin K is not just vitamin K. It's both vitamin K1 and vitamin K2. And there are several functions of vitamin K1 and K2. So it is indeed a multitasking vitamin. I also hope I have convinced you that there is some solid evidence behind this. And by now, hopefully you know that vitamin K2-7 is good for more than you think possible. If you're more interested in digging into the scientific literature, take a picture of this slide. This is just me who have selected some key references for you. I've included the study that I showed you on the intervention study and some other key studies on vitamin K2-7. But you're also free to do your own searches on scientific databases. You will find loads of evidence on vitamin K and also on vitamin K2-7 in specific. So before I end my presentation, I also want to present you to this Menachin Gold that I have been talking about, which was vitamin K2-7 that we used in our intervention study. It's produced by Novozymes. We are the largest producer of vitamin K2-7 in the world. And what's important for our vitamin K2-7 is that it's a natural, non-synthetic vitamin K2-7. So it's produced by fermentation, by bacteria, and it has, as I told you, since it's a vitamin K2-7, it has a high bioavailability and it has the longest half-life of all the vitamin K2. And as I have shown you, Menachin Gold also is backed by scientific evidence. Further to this, soy is not part of our manufacturing process. When we want to get rid of GMOs and all the allergy that can be related to soy, you're probably aware of those. And this is why our fermentation process is based on chickpeas instead. But by doing so, we get rid of all GMO. We are completely 100% soy-free. And that is truly an USP for this Menachin Gold. And on top of these two, we also have FDA GRAS assessment, meaning that the authorities in US, the FDA, they had no question to us filing this ingredient, meaning that they see it as a completely safe ingredient. Before I end, I also want to show you this white paper. It was actually published this Monday, so it's really fresh from the print, and it's still not on our website, but it will soon be. But I'm one of the authors here, but we're all from Novozymes, and we made this white paper on vitamin K2 insufficiency and overlooked opportunity, reviewing new health areas and the global status of vitamin K2. So if you're interested in this, keep an eye out for this on the Novozymes One Health website. We will soon put it there, and then you can download it for free. So it discusses the vitamin K2 family all the health benefits, the insufficiency as I explained to you about, and also why vitamin K2 supplementation is so important and should be on the breakfast table in every Korean house. So with that, I would like to show you one more cartoon, I think. Let's see if it works this time. While they're doing all the technical stuff, if you have any questions, doubts, requests, please visit me and the Everspring staff at booth E33. And we are welcoming you to have any questions or any requests. I'll be there as well, and together with the Everspring staff. So please pass by booth number E33 and have a conversation there.
비타민 K2 제품을 소개합니다. 우리 몸의 흡수율이 매우 우수한 천연 비타민 K2 제품 메나킨 골드 MK7입니다. 강력한 비타민 K2이며 7개의 사슬 구조를 가지고 있어 같은 비타민 K2로서 4개의 사슬 구조를 가지고 있는 약한 합성 제품 MK4와는 다릅니다. MK7은 시스와 트랜스의 2가지 이성질체가 가능한데 트랜스폰만이 100% 안전한 K2 효과를 나타내며 자연에 존재하는 뿐입니다. 메나킨 골드는 천연의 비타민 K2-7으로 구조상 몸에 더욱 쉽게 흡수되는 것으로 보이며 몸에 머무르는 시간도 길어서 다른 형태의 비타민 K2의 7~8배 높은 농도로 몸 안에 머무릅니다. 좀 더 완전한 카복실화를 가능하게 해주기 때문에 더욱 튼튼한 뼈와 더욱 건강한 심혈관을 갖게 하지요. 메나킨 골드 제품은 여러 가지 그레이드가 있으며 최신의 시설에서 제조된답니다. 안전성과 효능에 대해 철저한 연구가 되어 있고 여러 가지 독창적 연구 결과와 특허들이 뒷받침하고 있습니다. 우수성을 인증받았으며 어떤 형태의 완제품에도 적용이 가능하여 정제, 캡슐, 시럽 등이 가능하답니다. 완제품의 제형이 알칼리 성분으로 되어 있다면 메나킨 골드 ES를 추천하며 알갱이 하나하나에 개별적 보호 코팅이 되어 있어 비타민 K2-7의 손실을 최소화할 수 있습니다. 그리고 빵, 우유, 주스, 건강 음료 등 다양한 형태의 식품에 사용할 수 있습니다. 메나킨 골드, 천연 비타민 K2-7이 여러 가지 효과로 우리의 건강을 유지하도록 도와줄 수 있을 것입니다.
Thanks for the